the rates that are in your existing rate webinar, or your existing rate section, and we are going to see how we can move them over to the new rate wizard. So a couple of things that we are going to do is we'll talk a little bit about what we need to do first of all in order to be able to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to ask Cam at this point in time if you could please tell me from your rates here if you have any rates that are what you refer to as a master rate, or if they are rates that have tiering off of them. The first thing we like to do before we do the import is to go ahead and make sure that those are the first rates that we import into the system so that we can then go ahead and do tiering directly off of them. So I can see that the RAC is a master rate. And how about the in-house RAC, or is that one that you just use for hotel bookings directly? Okay, all other rates are tiered off of the RAC rate. Okay, that's super. So again, the RAC rate that we're looking at here, or the rack rate, is the rate that this property uses as their standard rate, and then all other rates are tiered off of that rate. And then the other thing is the in-house rack rate is the rate that is used specifically for in-house guests. Now, in the old rate system, you used to create a rate for in-house and a rate for GDS and potentially a rate for your website if you were using the RoomKey eRes. Now we have the ability, if we want to basically merge those all together and use them as one rate in RoomKey, so that you don't necessarily have to now maintain 3 rates. The new rate wizard in RoomKey will allow you to go ahead and open and close different booking channels all from one rate. So one of the first things that I'm going to suggest that you do before you do the rate import is to actually open 2 sessions of RoomKey. So you'll have, they're both for your property, but there'll be 2 sessions. And the reason that I suggest that you do that is because as we take a rate that's in your old rate system and we pull it into the new rate system, it's actually going to close your access in the old rates module. So by keeping 2 screens open, we're basically keeping the ability to go back and check the old rate in the old system and check it with the new imported rate into Rate Wizard and make sure that they are correct. As soon as you were to log out of the old rate system and log back in, you will use your ability to be able to do that. So my suggestion is always have 2 screens up before you start doing the import. The next step, again, as we just did with Cam, identify any of your master rates or the rates that are actually used for tiering, and those will be the first rates that we import into Rate Wizard. So once you've done that, you have your 2 rates and we've identified, so I'm going to select my rack rate. You are going to go over now to your new RoomKey and open up the Rate Wizard module. Once the Rate Wizard module has been opened, we are going to start off as though we are going to build a new rate by clicking on the plus symbol. Then anywhere on this screen, if you right-click, it's going to give us the ability to add an existing rate. So we're going to click on Add Rate. Once we click on Add Rate, it's now opening up for us a screen that is called the Rate Migration screen. And as we know, in RoomKey, we actually have 4 booking channels: Hotel Direct, CRS, Hotel Website, and GDS. And what these rate migration screens are doing for me is showing me if you have any CRS rates that need to be imported into the new Rate Wizard. And as we can see, this screen is completely blank, which tells me that this property does not have any rates set up for the central reservation system, which is absolutely correct because you do not use the central reservation system. Then when you click at Next, it's going to look at the next booking channel. And this is your hotel website. Now, my understanding is that you do not use ERES. And really the only time that you need to have a hotel website rate is if you are using our ERES program. Because you're not using our ERES program, I'm actually going to skip this because there's no reason to pull in the hotel website version of this rate, unless, Cam, you want to tell me via the question a reason why you need to have these. Otherwise, we don't really need these. And sometimes it's just the fact that you forgot and put a check mark in hotel website by mistake when you were creating this rate. So I'm just going to have a quick look at your response. We can skip those. Okay, super. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. And for any of you on this call that are with Vantage, you do not use our ERES. So if you have any rates built in the hotel website section here, I would just ignore them and go on to the next screen. Once we get to the next screen, these are basically showing me all of my GDS rates. So I have GDS rates set up basically by room type. So you can see each room type, and these are the rates that I am allowing to be able to be seen on the GDS. So in this case, it looks to me like you don't use your rack as your GDS rate, but you use your in-house as your GDS rate. Do you know if you do tier, or if you do use the in-house rack on your GDS, Cam? I'll just wait for you to send me an answer. And also, is your in-house rack rate the same as your rack rate? So I'm just waiting for Cam to send me an answer. Okay, so you're not 100% sure. Okay, so what I'm going to do then, Cam, is I'm actually going to copy them as two separate rates so that we can see how this works if you want to combine a rate or if you don't want to combine a rate. So in here, we're going to take your in-house rate, and I'm going to say that I need that to go to your GDS. So I'm going to go in and put a check mark in the in-house, and then I'm going to go down, and what I like to do to make sure that I remember that I've done the room type is to close it, and then when I check the next room type, I close that one as well. What that does, it makes sure that I don't forget a room type. If I was just to scroll through and do in-house and in-house, I may potentially forget to do one of my room types. But if I close the room type down as I do it, I know that I've put the check mark in that room type. So now I've specified that my GDS rate for these room types is to be migrated. Then I go to my next screen, and on my next screen, I'm able to go in and see that I have my my in-house or my hotel direct rates, and it's basically telling me that I don't have the rack rate set up for my hotel direct, so I must use that in-house as well for my hotel direct. Does that make sense for you? If you could just tell me, Cam, when you make a reservation that's specifically in-house, do you use the in-house rack rate or the rack rate? Yes, it should be the in-house rack that we're using. Okay, just to be absolutely sure, I am going to go back to this second version that I have running of RoomKey, and I want to go into your rates here and see with your AAA what it is actually tiered off of, whether it's tiered off of your in-house rack or rack. And this is important for you before you actually Yes, let's check and see. Okay, I'm just reviewing this. Okay. So when I go back over here, I'm just going to take us back a step. Okay, that's interesting that your rate is not showing up here. Okay, so let's go ahead and create this in-house rack one though. So I'm going to put my check mark in, minimize it because I've done this room type, I've done this room type, I've done this room type, this room type, and this room type. Now I'm going to go to the next, and then I'm going to go to next, and when I've gone through all 4 of my booking channels, I click on Done. And once I've clicked on Done, if I'm ready to create this rate, I can click on Create. Now, if I want to go in and specify here a minimum length of stay and a maximum length of stay, you can do that directly from this screen. You can also add your market segments as well. You'll also notice that any descriptions I've put on the rates have not come across. So if I needed to go back and look at what the description was on that rate, the option to have 2 screens open allows me to go back to my other rate and go in here, and I can look up that in-house rate. And if there was any kind of, I'm sorry, let's go back here and go to my in-house rack rate and edit. If there was any kind of description, I can highlight that description and copy and paste it over to here. And you'll also notice here that on your rack rate, you do have a minimum 1 person, maximum persons 2. So if you did want to move that over to your new system, you would click over here and change this to maximum persons 2. Now remember, this is not based on your room type. So when you set up in your old rate wizard, you used to set them up by room type. So if you have room types that have more than 3 people or more than 2 people in them, you really should leave this at 0 and allow your room inventory, where you specify the maximum number of people in the room, and it will automatically make sure that you don't put the maximum number of people over what the room will accommodate. Then you can go ahead and press Create. Oh, hang on, let's see what we've done here. Let's do this again from scratch. So we don't have a CRS. We are not using the hotel website. So it looks as if on your rack rate, you may only have hotel website selected. So Cam, I'm actually going to have to go back and look in your rates here, because it looks as if that rack rate that you're using here may not have the right booking channel set up for it. So these are all things that you will need to, on your own, when you're doing it, you will run into these issues as well. So you need to be aware of how we can go ahead and go back and check them. So let's go back and see. So we have hotel website. just take a look at this again. I'm just again going through these rates and making sure that change that I just made to the hotel website has been removed. That's interesting. This rack rate doesn't have any rate set up. So you should have, it says here that you should have all of your room types tiered off of rack. Is this going to tier off the house rack? So whichever one you set up your tiering afterwards, that's your answer to the question, Cam. I am trying to figure out why this rack rate, let's go here. So you do appear to have a rate in here for your room types. So let's just try this again. So as I'm selecting them, I'm closing them down. Okay, so now it's basically loaded my rack rate. I can now go in and edit that rack rate. And if I don't have a rack rate and I do want to use it on my GDS at my Hotel Direct, I can add a check mark in there. I can go in now and do my minimum maximum length of stay to 1 and 1. I could go in there if I wanted to and add my description. And then I'm going to go ahead and update this rate. So once I've updated this rate, it's telling me that I have a rack rate that is available on the hotel website and on the Hotel Direct. I'm going to go in now that it's in my rate wizard and check to make sure that the correct client types have come across. So we go up to client type and make sure to see whether or not I have the correct client type here. So if this is going to be accessible hotel direct to a leisure guest, and on the hotel website, it's basically saying, oh, I see what you've done. You've used the hotel website as though it's GDS, which is maybe the way that you have this set up. You don't have them set up as GDS rates, but I'm going to leave this just the way it is so that if you are using hotel website CAM, it will use that particular client type. If you had a rate that was a corporate rate, you would want to come in here and check the corporate rate and make sure that when you click on, actually you're not using any corporate rates, otherwise it would have showed corporate. And if you have groups, you would come in here and you would be able to see any groups that you had that applied to this rate. The next thing we're going to do is go into the next column and go in and look at our rate calendar and confirm that this rate has come across correctly. So when the rate comes, it's picked up all of your weekend rate changes, etc., and it will have picked up any open and close to arrivals and also any minimum length of stays. Now, a couple of the things that it does not bring across for you is your differential template. So if you have a template set up, you would need to go back to the other side of the screen, and where you've set your template up here, you would need to go in and look at your template, or if you want to create a new template for these room types going forward, you can unlock your grid, put your differentials in for your different room types, make sure that you don't put a date range in here, and then when you update your template, it will give you a message saying that you have now created a template for this rate. So now we have our rack rate. Can you tell me quickly, Cam, should this rack rate be able to be booked at your Hotel Direct? It should. Okay, so let's go back here to the General tab, and let's make sure from the main page and edit that you do have here Hotel Direct, Hotel Website, and I think potentially we should put GDS in here as well in case you ever want to tier the rack off of this rate. Now remember, the linking all takes place in your booking channel, so if you're using iHotelier or TravelClick, if it's not hooked up to rack rate, then it won't be looking at rack rate, but it's just giving you the ability going forward that you ever do want to have this rate on the GDS, you will be able to do this. Now, in the old rate system, you used to sometimes have to create a separate rate if you wanted to be opening and closing that rate separately, which is why you may not always have had a GDS rate for rack because you wanted it to have its own rack rate that you could open and close. But in RoomKey, what we're actually doing, if you can imagine in the background, is creating for this rate 3 shadow rates that are attached to this same rate. One of them I show on the GDS, one I show on the hotel website, and one I show on the Hotel Direct booking. And if you remember, when we go in here and we make changes to this rate, I can actually apply on the changes whether I'm changing my Hotel Direct only copy, my website copy, or my GDS copy. So that's why I can open and close, I can change the rates, I can do minimum length of stays on each individual version of the rate without having to have separate versions actually built in RoomKey. So I'm going to go back to that main page that we have again for our rate wizard, and I am going to add the GDS in here, and then I'm going to update it. Now we're going to move forward and we're going to do that in-house rack. So again, we're going to add website. We're going to right-click and add existing rate. We don't have a CRS rate. We don't have the in-house on our website. We do have it on the GDS. So I'm going to select it and close it, select it and close it, select and close, select and close, and select and closed. Then I move to the next one, and I'm going to go to the next one, and I'm done. I can click on done now. I want to call this one my star in-house rack, and I create, and now this has created the in-house rack, which is my GDS only rate. I'm going to go down and check here to make sure that I have the right client type. Make sure that I've checked off. So in here, this is where I'm getting a little confused with your rates, because normally you would go in here and click off the types that you want for your GDS. I don't want to change any of these because obviously this is set up correctly in your system. So I'm just going to leave these the way they are and update. And then close this down. If you have a minimum, maximum length of stay, again, you would go in here and create your minimum and maximum length of stays. You would type your description in or go in and copy and paste your description in here. And then we will update this. And then the next thing that you would want to do is to go into the next button and verify with our rate calendar that we have the correct rates in there. Once we've checked that we have the correct rates in there, I would go back to the General tab, and if you did need to set up your rate tiering in here, you would unlock the grid and put in there the differentials for your different room types, and then update rate template. Now let's look at one of the rates that we know is tiered. So now if I go back into the AAA rate, and I'm going to go over here now and create a AAA rate. So I can do my rate wizard, create. Now some people actually like to go in here and just type in AAA first before they actually do this, so we know what rate we're creating. So we're going to go in here. There is not a CRS rate. There is one here on the hotel website. Let's go back again. There isn't one on the GDS. And there isn't one here. So let's go back. And we're going to take the AAA and select it. AAA and select. AAA and select, AAA and select, AAA and select. And now we can go to the next and next. And then we're going to click on done. I'm going to put my minimum and maximum in here. And I'm going to create. I'm then going to go back into edit. I'm going to go back to this screen and edit the rate and see that you've got a description here that says AAA member. So I can go in there and copy it, go over to my new rate wizard and paste it. And now I can update this. Now I'm going to edit again and make sure that I have all of the right client types in here. Now, do you book your okay, there is a question here from Cam that says, when you say CRS, is it the RoomKey CRS or the CRS used by Vantage? It is the RoomKey CRS. So what I'm thinking is you may be using that hotel website client type specifically to identify your CRS, but not our CRS. So that's why I don't want to remove any of that for you, Cam. I just want to leave it the way it is. So in here, you do book the AAA, I presume, through your hotel directly. So I'm going to check off Hotel Direct. Can you tell me, Cam, do you book AAA through your GDS as well? You do? Okay, so I am going to put your GDS in here as well. And then I'm going to go up to your client types and make sure under Hotel Direct your leisure guests can see it. And then in your GDS, again, I'm not going to put anything in here because I'm not sure how you're using your hotel website. It appears that that has all of your GDSs booked in there. So I don't want to mess up what you have set up now. I'm going to update this. And then I'm going to close this down. And we're going to go into next. And you have said that this is tiered off of your in-house rack rate. So if we go back in here and look, you'll notice that the tiering is not set up. So you do need to go back in and set up your tiering. So we're going to enable rate tiering. We're going to go in here. And again, can you just confirm for me, Cam, which one you want it tiered off of? No, it should be off the rack, not the in-house rack. Excellent, thank you. So I'm going to go in here and select the rack. I'm going to say that if the rack rate is changed, change the rack rate. If I open and close or change length of stay, then we will be doing that automatically. Now the advantage also over here having this screen open is that I can go back to my AAA rate and I can go in and see that it is a 10% if I can't remember. So now we want to set that up in RoomKey in the rate wizard, and it was 10% more right now, so I need to click on 10% less. I'm not rounding anything. Apply changes now and save. So now if I go back into my rate calendar, what I should see in here by room type that I have my rate set up, and it does appear that you had this rate closed out January 16th and 17th. Does that sound correct for you, Cam? Okay, so you asked me if the tiering, why the tiering didn't come across. It's just a function of how the import was set up. It was set up to import rates, but not tiering. And I guess the assumption was it was so quick to set up tiering, it's easier just for you to go back and set up the tiering versus potentially the amount of work it would have taken for us to go in and try and set up it to import the tiering as well. So it is important that you all remember that we do have to import the tiering, or so we do have to go back in and set up the tiering, but once it's set up, that's fine. And let's go back to our main page. So now, again, our AAA rate, I do want to set that up as a Hotel Direct and a GDS, just so that going forward you will have those available to you. So now if I go into my next, I can go into my rate calendar. And you'll notice that there is no rate in there right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my rate tiering. I'm going to take this and tier it off of in-house and save it just to change the tiering. Then I'm going to go back and attach it back up to rack, apply changes now, and save. And now we'll see if it's fixed that on the rate calendar for us. Now, if it doesn't bring a rate across for you, so we see that it didn't have a rate there, what we can do now is go back into here, and when we go into our different room types, Cam, do you know if every room type had the AAA on it, or were there only certain rooms? Yes, they all have it. Okay. So Cam, you were saying it looks like you have to go in and re-enter all the information. The only thing that you have to re-enter is the description, the rate tiering, and the differential. Everything else in as far as your rate, the rate categories, where you have set up rates to change on different dates, that is all coming across automatically for you. So it is importing the whole rate as it stands across into the rate wizard. But yes, there are those three fields that you have to go back in and change. You do need to go in, add the description, add the template if you need one, and you do have to add the tiering. So there are some steps that you need to go in and do manually. Let's go back now and take a look at one of the other rates that you have in here. I'm sorry, I'm so used to using the rate wizard. So when we go into your rates again, let's take a look at another rate and pull it across. So now when you go down here, do you remember I was saying to you that there are some rates when we looked at the AAA rate that did not have a rate attached to it? So if we go in here, we're seeing in here that the only, oops, sorry, let's go back here to rates. When I imported the AAA rate across, because it was only set up to be a GDS rate, you'll notice that when I arrow down here, sorry, it was only set up to be a hotel website rate. You'll notice now when I look in my rates that the AAA rate and the rate for the GDS does not have a rate for this room type. See how they're blank? So if that happens to you and you find that your rate calendar on your rate wizard is red, we can actually go back into the old rate wizard and copy the rate. So I'm looking at this room type king. So if I click on room type king, I can copy the rate from room type king, go into my AAA rate and paste it. And that is successful. And now I can go into the GDS and I can paste it as well. And if I do that for each room type, so I've just done it for the B1 King. If I now go back over to this side and I look at my rate wizard, and I go to my AAA and next, if I go into my rate calendar now and I pick my B1 King and I pick my hotel direct, I'm going to have a rate in it now. And if I go in and I look at my GDS, I will have a rate in there as well. The fact that I've only copied my B1 King, if I go into my B2Q and I look at my Hotel Direct, I'm still going to find that it is red and I don't have a rate. So sometimes when you add a new booking channel to an existing rate, because there was no rate originally built in the rates module, it doesn't have anything to copy across. But in order to consolidate the three together, you can certainly go back into your old rates, right-click again on the rate type that you have a rate for. And by the way, I know that this is the one I have the rate on because I have a to and a from. So I right-click and copy it. Then I go back up, and now I'm going to paste. And that was successful. And now I'm going to paste again, and that will be successful. Then I move on to the next room type. I'm going to right-click and copy this one, and then I'm going to paste it into each of the other room types. And if that was successful, I'm going to go on to my next room type. And basically, I'm going to do this for each of my room types till I get my rates built for all of them. I'm just going to get this all done so that we can go back and look at our rate and see that this is successful. So just bear with me while I get these ones completed. Now, what I'm going to suggest going forward for each of your properties, before we even start to do the import, I want you to take a look at all of your existing rates that you have to make sure that you do understand the booking channels that you have set up. For this particular property, Cam, for your property, it's a little different than what we are used to seeing. Usually, instead of having the GDS set up underneath your hotel websites, they're usually always set up under your GDS. So I think we may have to take a look at some of your rates and see if this is a standard across all of the different Vantage hotels. So I'm actually going to take a moment to switch to a different hotel and see what else we have. So could I get someone else on the line to just text a question to tell me what properties you have, or what your property name is, so I can look at one of those properties? Okay, 2014 ABVI. Okay, is that the actual name that your hotel goes under, David? But I'm not actually finding it under that. Oh, Best Western's Flint. Okay, thank you. Let me find that then. Okay, so I'm just going to take a quick look at yours, Flint, David, and see if you have it set up the same way. Okay, so as we were expecting, you have nothing under your CRS. You only have one under your hotel website, which is probably just a mistake. And then under your GDS, this is what I'm expecting to see. So these are, you have your hotel rack rate under your GDS, and then you probably have these ones tiered off of your GDS. And then if we go through to next, this is what you would have on your Hotel Direct, so people can book these through your Hotel Direct. So this is more what we expect to see. We don't expect to see anything under those hotel websites. So I think, Cam, what we are going to do before we import any more rates, I'm going to set up a call with you directly to look at your rates, because it doesn't appear to me that your rates are set up the way that we would set them up in RoomKey as a standard. So I'm going to actually take a moment and open up a second session for you as well here, David, and we're going to do one rate for you to bring it across so that we can see how it will work basically to combine the two rates. Just bear for me while it's opening up. Okay, so I'm going to move this one up here, and then let's just cancel this. Okay, so we're going to open up your old rate system on this version. And David, if you can tell me what rate, I presume it's your rack rate that everything is tiered off. Can you just confirm that for me? Perfect, thank you. Okay, so this is our rack rate. So the first rate that we would want to create in the rate wizard is your rack rate. So we're going to go in here and add. We're going to call it your rack rate. Then we are going to right-click anywhere on the screen and add existing rate. There is no CRS or web to add, but we do want to put the GDS and the Hotel Direct together. So we're going to click Hotel Direct and just in case you haven't noticed, this always goes to the bottom. That is something that you should be aware of. So hotel rack, and let's close that one. Hotel rack, 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 close, and then close. So that's all of my room types for this one. Then we go across, and what should see here is that when we go up to the top, that hotel rack is not showing up here because I've already selected it. So next I go to done. We would put in here our minimum and maximum length of stay in here. If you have any description, you would write it in here. Once we've done that, we will create the rate. Once we've created the rate, we'll go back in and edit that rate. We will go in and make sure that if there's any other booking channels we need to set it up for, we select that and go into our client types and make sure that under Hotel Direct we can book as a leisure guest, and under our GDS it's brought across all of the GDSs that we have selected, and then we would update. Then we are going to make sure if this rate was selected, we'd see if we had corporate rates that we needed to attach it to. And again, we'll go in here and see what corporate rates we have attached to. Then we're going to go to the next field. And in the next field, if this was a tiered rate, we would go in and set up our tiering. If we had a template, we would have gone back in and set up that template as well. So under next, we would set up our template. And again, that's by unlocking the grid. Just want to make sure this took my Hotel Direct and update. And then we will always check our rate wizard. And make sure that it has pulled the rate across correctly. So if it's pulled the rate across correctly, we now have our rate imported across from RoomKey. So that was just a little bit simpler, knowing all of the different booking channels and what it was attached to. So if we wanted to, I just want to verify and see whether it did bring the Hotel Direct across as well. Yes. Oh, no, so I didn't bring the Hotel Direct across for me. So let's go back, and when we go in and out of here, I'll be able to look to see that I don't have a rate for the different room types on the Hotel Direct. So obviously when you built this rack rate, it was built as a GDS only and not built as a Hotel Direct. So we would have to go in and add those in before we do the tier. So you want to make sure that your rack rate is built perfectly before you tier it. So I am going to go out of this and then go back in. And now you'll see when I look at my different room types, I have a rack GDS rate, but I don't have a just plain rack rate. So in this case, I'm going to go in and copy this, go up here, and paste my rack rate for King. And I'm just going to do this for each room type. And then one last room type. So now that I've done that, if I go back over to my rate wizard and I go into my rack rate and I look at my next, I can go into my rate calendar, pick my queen, pick my hotel direct, and now I'm going to have a rate in there. So now I feel comfortable that my rack rate is correct. Now I can go forward and copy my AAA rate. So I'm going to go back here, back to my main page, add a rate, right click, add existing rate. Now I'm going to put AAA up here first, right click, add existing rate. I don't have the CRS, don't have the hotel website. I do have it for my GDS rate, so I'm going to click and close, and I'm going to go up to the top, click and close, click and close, click and close. So now I have all those done, and I click on next. I have it here, so I'm going to go to done. Once I've done done in here, if I had a description, I can go back over here and edit my rate, see if there was any kind of verbiage, which there isn't. I can also see that it's a 10% discount, so I'm going to go back here and create my rate. Once I've created my rate, I'm going to go back in and edit it and add in my hotel direct and update. Your minimum maximum days, sorry, I should have updated those. And update. And then because I know that this is a tiered rate, I'm going to go to next, and I'm going to rate tiering. I'm enabling rate tiering. I'm enabling all of my channels off of my rack rate, which I already know is correct. I can see on the other side of the screen here that it's 10%. I know that it's 10% less. And once I've got this correct, apply charges now and save. And now I can go to my rate tiering, and I can go in here, and I can see that my rate is now 10% less. So what you're going to find is, although this seems like quite a number of steps, as you do more rates, you'll become more comfortable with the rates, and probably by about your third or fourth rate, you'll find that you can copy them across very quickly. You don't have to do them all at once. You can do a couple each day until you get all of the rates migrated across. Once they have migrated across to the rate wizard, any rate changes you want to make going forward will have to be made through the rate wizard, which is what we went through on our first session. I don't want to keep you more than an hour, and we're just running at that hour point at this point in time. The instructions for how to do what we have done today, you can find under your help and your RoomKey Smart Support. Once you go into RoomKey Smart Support, you can enter in Rate Wizard on the question line, and that is going to get you to a document that you can print or save that will tell you how to import rates. So in here, learn to create a new or how to import an existing rate plan into Rate Wizard. This is where you're going to find your information on what we have covered today. My suggestion would be, because this is a fairly labor-intensive job, the first one that you want to do, if you do want to give a call ahead of time to our support department and tell them that you are planning on importing rates, could they please let you know if there is a trainer available that can help you for the first couple of rates? We are more than happy to offer that service to you. So having done this webinar, you will at least know what you have to do, but we can be on the phone with you for half an hour or so while you do your first import. Are there any questions at this point in time? I'm sure there are probably lots. I will do my best if there are any questions to answer them for you. Okay, I'm not actually seeing any questions at this point in time. So if you, again, are ready to go ahead and do your rate import, you can try one on your own if you would like, but if you do have any questions, please phone support and schedule it ahead of time. They don't always have time immediately to work with you, and they may prefer to get you a trainer to work with you for your import. If you have, if I don't see any other questions, which I don't at this point in time, let me just take another quick look and see if there are any other questions coming in. Okay, Cam, I can actually get you directly. I will send you an email directly for this. I have a question here from David. If we don't import a rate, will it auto-disappear? I'm not sure what you mean. Are you talking about when we don't use the rates module anymore? And in that case, we would probably give you a good 6 months notice that we are going to close down the rates module. So that is going to give you that 6 months to get those rates moved across. And we would probably send out an email to all our customers before we closed it down to check to see if there are any clients that know they still have rates in the old rates module that we need to go ahead and help them move across. And then the last thing also is when you do your rates import, don't bring across any rates that have expired. So in other words, if you are looking at your rates over here, and for instance, this rate has expired, you do not want to bring this rate across. You can just skip that rate completely and then move down to only the rates that are valid and just move those rates across. So you may find that although it looks like you've got tons of rates, there may be less rates that need to be moved than you expect. So if there are no other questions, I thank everybody for your participation today. Hopefully we've kind of looked at some of the problems that you will run into and how we go about fixing those problems. Do take a look at the documentation. It is very helpful. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to direct them to our support department, and we will then try and get you in contact with a trainer that can work with you. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye-bye.